Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's edition of Wine, Women, and Words. And joining me, as always, is Michelle.
Hello.
And tonight, our extra special guest is Armando Lucas Correa, and we are discussing his book, The Daughter's Tale. So thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Now, I gotta turn my volume here a little bit. Sorry, guys. So we were just talking about this book. Michelle is just started it, and she said it made her heart hurt. I am absolutely loving the book. It's one of those books where I had to set it down for like a day or so because it was just I got mad at one of the characters, and it was one of those things where
Good.
yeah, and I set it down, and I'm just like watching. I'm like, okay, I'm mad at you, but I gotta know what you do. But I'm still mad at you.
This doesn't mean I forgive you.
Exactly. So one of the things that I think we should actually, before we even dive into the book, what's everybody drinking tonight? Armando, you're our guest. Guest first.
This is something Moe Chandon. I have it on the feed. Yeah.
Oh.
Cheers. Yeah.
Cheers. Yes, love it. And Michelle?
This is Moscato, I think. Yes, it tastes very. I forgot. There are 2 bottles, and I forgot which one I grabbed. But I think this is the Moscato.
Oh, nice. And I'm drinking a Pinot Gris, and it kind of has this really nice apple taste to it. So it's really nice and crisp.
Very nice.
Yeah. So I'm enjoying that.
We had our first, kind of feels like it could be summer soon day. So it feels like a nice crisp wine was in order out here because it's supposed to rain tomorrow again.
Michelle's in Chicago. Are you guys still really cold out there in New York, Armando?
Yeah, it's cold and raining yesterday. Today was a little rain too. Yeah. We are in the middle of late winter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, when you come out next week, it should be nice. It's been gray in the mornings out here, but by the afternoon, it's like beautiful and in the 70s with lots of sunshine. So you'll have to soak it all up when you come out.
Yeah.
So now we just have to dive into this book because I've got some stuff that I need to unpack. And I know Michelle's got some stuff that she's going to need to unpack here. So when we're discussing these things that made our hearts hurt, as Michelle so eloquently put it, they had to go with Amanda, who is our main character in the story, making some really difficult decisions. Now, you're a parent as well. How hard was it for you to get into her mindset for these decisions that she makes? And we won't say the decisions specifically for those who haven't read the book yet or haven't gotten to that point yet. But as a parent, how hard was this for you?
Oh, I have 3 children. And I do remember when I was writing, because when I finished the book, I think it was like 2 years ago, after the whole process for editing and going to print and marketing. And it was intense. This is the second part of a trilogy. I started with a German girl. Another family broke because of the war. And during the war, you have to make terrible decisions. And sometimes abandon is part of the surviving mode that you have to follow. No? And I always think one of the protection that you have as a human being in the middle of the war is oblivion and abandon. This is something that all these characters have to deal with it during the whole novel, I think.
Yeah, I mean, even the kids have to make really hard decisions. Nobody has, the choice of being able to just sit back and do nothing. And as you see, for those who do try to do nothing, it ends up biting them in the butt, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, and so everyone knows for journalists, I'm a freelance journalist, so I'm like nerding out on the fact that I can talk to you about some of these things. But everyone knows in journalism the importance of hooks. You have 1 to 2 sentences to grab your readers and make them care about your story. Now, fortunately, with books, you have more than 2 sentences, but you still have to be very aware of what you want your opening scene to be, and the Daughter's Tale opens, surrounding the book burnings that happened, at the very beginning, before everything started getting really bad, but after the point where everyone's starting thinking that it could get bad. What was your reasoning to make that your opening scene?
I decided because at the beginning, I remember I have all the letters, this box of letter that is going to go to the past. And then I am a Cuban refugee too. I left Cuba in 1991. And I remember when I arrived in Miami, uh, uh, everybody has different thing that is valuable for them. Some people, their picture, for me, they were my books from college. And I remember talking to my mother and asking every time that someone is coming to Miami, please send me my books. And it was ridiculous. Where you're living in United States, you can get anything that you want. And after many years, I threw them away. I keep only my college books. That it was very special and unique. But for me, books, they were very important. And I decided to create a character in Berlin after the, burning all the books. And you have to decide what is the most valuable one for you. You have to say one, which one is. And most of the Jewish people living in Nazi Germany in 1938, 1939, they, all of them, they speak French, most of them, and they love to read, in original language, all this French literature. And I decided it has to be the botanic books. I bought one from, I think it's 1830. I found one in Limoges when I went to Orador Suclane, part of the story of the book. And I was in love with all these images. And I said, this woman has to write in these beautiful, flowers and with Latin birds. And I was creating the character when I went to Orador Suclane. And because book is important for me, I think what you have to do, you have to choose only one. Which book is going to be? Yeah.
Oh, that is a total Sophie's choice for me. You can only see a portion of my bookcase, and we just picked up some new bookcases this weekend, and just because I'm already running out of space for books, and man,
We never have to choose the books,
yeah, yeah. Yes, I couldn't choose. I could not choose one. I don't know. Michelle, would you be able to choose one, or that's?
I would. I mean, I don't have, I don't have any first editions or anything like that, but I would probably grab one of the copies of The Wizard of Oz that I have. That would probably be mine. What would yours be, Armando?
If I have to choose one.
I know we got all the hard-hitting questions here.
Right now, for example, I have the Diary of the Captain from the St. Louis, signed by him from 1949. I have to keep that one. It's very special. I think him to donate it to the Holocaust Museum in Havana, and this is very special, because I have him for many years, and part of the treasure that I keep in from the St. Louis. Yeah.
I love it. I love that's so cool. I don't know. I still don't know. I'd be one of those. Well, I could pick this one. Well, no, wait, no, I'll get this one instead. But yeah, one of the things that you just touched on that I want to touch on and go into a little bit more, and the point in the book where I'm at, we kind of allude to, is the Jewish refugees in Cuba. Now, it wasn't until this book. Now, I haven't read your first book, The German Girl, yet. It's going to be in my next on my to be read list. But there were Jewish refugees in Cuba. I didn't know this.
Yeah, everything is related to The German Girl. When I heard about the St. Louis, it was an ocean liner from Hapag, so this big company in Germany, that yesterday was 80 years ago. May 13 at 8 p.m., they left Hamburg with 937 Jewish refugees, fleeing Nazi Germany. All of them, they have permit of disembark uh, in Havana.
Mhm.
They pay a fortune for the permit,
Mhm.
and another fortune because it was a very luxury boat. And when they arrived in Havana, they were denied. They rejected them. The government required another $500 per passenger. It was a fortune at that moment. And they were negotiating with the government. The U.S. committee from New York arrived in Havana, trying to get all the passengers in Cuba. And in June 2nd, the President Laredo Gru ordered that the boat has to leave Havana.
Mhm.
And they approached Miami, and they start negotiating with the government of Roosevelt. It was the president at that moment,
Mhm.
because some of them they have visas to go to United States, but the waiting list sometime is around 5 years, and that's the
Mhm.
reason they stay in Havana until the visa for United States it was available. Roosevelt said no. They're trying to go to Canada, and Prime Minister Mackenzie said no. They were returned to Europe, and in the middle of the ocean, they got permit to disembark in Belgium, and Belgium accepted a couple of hundred, Great Britain another couple of hundred, Holland and France. Of course, the only one in Great Britain avoided the war. In
Mhm.
September, the war started, and most of them ended in Auschwitz.
Mm.
For 300, they were killed. Most of the children were saved because they didn't have any money. They went to the in France, for example, to the non-occupied zone in the Vichy government. And yesterday I went with a couple of survivors to a concert, dedicated to them. Right
Mhm.
now, all the survivors, they are my friend. I have the story with me because my grandmother, she's a daughter of a Spanish immigrant. They were in Cuba, and she was pregnant with my mom when the boat arrived in Havana. And I grew
Mhm.
up in the 70s and 80s, and I remember my grandmother in the middle of the dining table saying Cuba is going to pay very dearly because what they did to these Jewish refugees. I grew up
Mhm.
with that story. In Cuba, nobody talked about the San Luis.
Mhm.
When I went to college, I have access to the National Archive for my thesis. And then I asked about the St. Louis if they have any document. And the woman, like a quiet, came to me and said in secret, yes, we used to have like a 3 boxes on the St. Louis and disappeared during the 70s. And, there is nothing here about the St. Louis. When I arrived in the United States in 1991, working for the Herald, I trying to find all the material related to the St. Louis. I bought the diary from the captain, postcard, maps, plates, original pictures, and all the books, even in language that I don't read, I have it with me. And at the beginning, because I am a journalist, I was thinking to do like a book with interviews with the survivors and all these documents. But I wanted to be out of my comfort zone.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
wrote a couple of chapters. I remember the first one, it was around 1998, maybe.
Mhm.
And I signed the contract with Simon and Schuster in 2014 or 13, I think. It took me many years to finish the book because time job in the magazine. I had my 3 kids, and until I have the contract, I didn't. I decided. Then with all this material, I finished my book. I never talked to the survivors until I finished The German Girl,
Mhm.
and because I wanted, it's in first person. This little girl is gonna be 12 years old, and I wanted to sound like a fairy tale.
Mhm.
If I talk to the survivor, it's gonna be an invasion for me, in the style and everything. When I sent the book to print, I started talking to all the survivors.
Mhm.
Because, right now they're my friends. I travel to Toronto, to Miami, eh, around the country, trying to meet the children of the St. Louis.
Mhm.
And talking to them, I haven't, I signed already the second book and the third book with Simon and Schuster, and I have the story, this kind of story that always involves someone more than Hitler, like the St. Louis,
Mhm.
Cuba. United States and Canada were guilty to it. And in the the La Hija Olvidada, the daughter say La Hija Olvidada in Spanish. We use another story too. It's Orador-sur-Glane. This is a small town in south of France. That one day in 1945, a beautiful Saturday during summer, the Nazis arrived and ordered all the people to go inside the church, and they burned down the church with all of them alive, over 140 women and children. And it was the Nazis that it was part of the French, policemen that they participate.
Mhm.
That's the reason, Orador sur Glane is part of the memorial in the south of France, and people don't talk about it.
No.
And I always try to have this kind of story that you put on, you try to forget because it's shameful when you
Mhm.
talk about that.
Mhm. Absolutely. It's we were talking about this last week with author Jillian Cantor. She was, she writes World War II as well. There's so many stories around this war that people just don't talk about
Mhm.
yet, and that we're still uncovering and we're still finding that are still new and fresh.
Yeah.
Um, and it feels like this story itself. I mean, I could just listen to the history of this
Mhm.
all night. Really, I know Michelle is raptured. I can
And,
tell.
I remember when I have my whole story around the Oral to Glen, Berlin, the Guardian of Letters, the bookstore. I visit one of the survivors. She was 14 months old, and she went she was in the St. Louis with the mother, father, and grandfather. They sent them back to France, and in France they fell free. And 2 years later, the Nazi arrived, and they went to a concentration camp controlled by the French police. And one night, Judith told me that the father said, "Let's go to outside the camp. We have access. We can leave."
Mhm.
And in the middle of the forest, he said, "Look at the tree." And once 5 seconds later, the father left, and she was safe with another family, French family.
Mhm.
And I was thinking I have to use this thing because she was telling me, and she's 80 years old. She was crying with me,
Mhm.
and it's
Mhm.
something I guess really from the past, and it's still with her, and it's painful for her.
Mhm.
And she said even today she feels sometimes with the feeling of abandon. She goes sometimes to the pharmacy, and if she couldn't find, her friend or her daughter, she feel like someone abandoned her. And
Mhm.
and she's 80 something right now.
Mhm. Mhm.
About 80 years later, it still is strong in her mind. Yeah.
Trauma lingers, absolutely. And it shows.
Mhm. But the novel is about tragedy, but at the same time, it's a love story.
Well, there's love and there's
Everybody say, "Oh my God, I cry all the time. I read the book in one night." I say, "Okay, let's take it sometime." There is some hope in the book. I'm tempted, I hope.
yeah, there's definitely hope in there. You definitely you feel the hope and you see the love. I mean, just with or Amanda's husband, whose name is suddenly I'm forgetting.
Julius.
Um, yeah, he had so much love for them to have that plan to try to get them out, to try to save his family when he was dying himself.
Mhm.
That was a very selfless act on his part. And I feel we're talking a lot about Amanda and the girls, and he
Mhm.
doesn't get as much credit for how much selflessness he had there, and that choice.
I love Julius. Character that I favorite because I always love this character that I like ghosts.
Hmm.
They they have a presence, but they're
Hmm.
not too active like Amanda or Elise or Lina. And Julius, I think, is one of them that is going to be present the whole book, but it's like
Hmm.
a ghost. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Michelle, you had a question?
I do. As as a journalist, you're already in that mindset of kind of, research and fact check and verify when you're putting together a story. But when you're writing a novel, I feel like you kind of have to change that mindset a little bit. But how do you feel? How would you say your experience as a journalist kind of
Mhm.
helped you and gave you an edge when you were putting this story together?
As a journalist, you always, first of all, is deadline. I never miss a deadline. And always, even Barack Obama, I think he missed deadline with the book. I heard, and that was an obsession. At the same time, accuracy. You want to have all the facts, like it has to be perfect. And even though that all the stories around Berlin, the bookstore, I invented the bookstore. At that moment, all the bookstore has the last name of the owner, and I want to create something like Garden of Letter because I found a point on that moment. I think it's perfect for the bookstore. But you want to have what kind of book a kind of this kind of family is going to have in the bookstore in the front. I remember trying to find some paper, that documentation that the people who order, uh, what kind of book they order, or what is the wallpaper that they use in the bookstore. I was obsessed with that, and maybe nobody's gonna take care of it. Because Orador Surglain is very. I trying to have everything perfect. The name of the hotel, the street, and the church. And for the German girl, I was very, very carefully when I was writing about the travesty, the voyage of the boat. And if I said that May 14 was raining, it was raining. If they that night drink, they ate that drink. I have the menu and the music, and but at the rest, I trying to feel free and want to play with emotions and the character. And I remember dressing Amanda. It was some or Hilda, the friend. What kind of clothes this woman who traveled to Paris almost every week? They have pants that were very popular. It was like a protest when you use pants at that moment.
Fun. And it's one of those things where when I've talked to other historical fiction authors, it's always the advice they always give is that at some point you have to put down the research and pick up the pen. Was it hard for you to put down the research to just to write the story, or?
No, no, really. To have all the information, I write in my. I have a country house upstate New York, and I have this small museum with all the papers and map. I need the map. I have to feel what is Charlottenburg or Mide, where my character lives, and the distance. But I love starting the morning and writing and follow my character. Then I have to clean it sometime because it's too much. You are writing, you have to be, you need to find the accuracy and have it perfect. But no, I love to follow my imagination and creating all this. And sometimes you are impressed for yourself. It's, oh my God, I'm doing this. This woman is capable to do something like that. Follow. And I remember when they are in the concentration camp, every day I feeling, I move the plot for different way because it's your mind and you're feeling like her and what you're gonna do with your daughter and I remember I want because they are Jewish. I want to have day one, day two until the Shabbat. It's important for them. They have to wait until the sun is done to do whatever they want to do. And I was playing with the day and tradition for them.
I love it. I love it. It's such a good book, and I've been enjoying every bit of it as I've mentioned. Michele?
Sorry, I flipped the camera on accident. You don't need to see my table. And one thing I pay really close attention to dialogue, because I feel like that's something that I sometimes struggle with as a writer. And one piece of advice that one of my journalism professors gave me once was never use a quote if you can write it better yourself. Which I've always remembered whenever I'm writing something. But how is there a certain approach that you take to dialogue when you're inserting it into the story?
Uh, for the German girl, I remember the first draft that I had. It was like a little dialogue at the beginning because you want to be more creative. You want to play, with the mood and you feel that these people have to speak. You need to listen to them,
Mhm.
and it helped to the action. And because I studied theater, I always the pace of the book is very important for me. I need to go to point A to point B to point C immediately.
Mhm.
Even to have an idea, I think I finished the book with over 100,000 words, but I
Mhm.
wrote almost 200,000 words. I edited me first. I write a lot. I let, you know, to have my old history, and then I'm trying to shrink him until the minimum that I can. And then with the editor, the editor loves to eliminate everything that they want. That dialogue is important, something that we have to learn when we're writing, that is not the same when you're talking on the street that when the character is talking, because in a phrase, you have to feel the character, you have to see the character, and the action at the same time. Action
Mhm.
is the most important part for the dialogue. Okay,
Mhm.
what is the reason? Say, hi, how are you? I'm fine. And you? That's not for a book.
Mhm.
Maybe for a very realistic book, you want to go to feel the character, and you need to feel that they're expressing something and they want something, and maybe they're never gonna get it. That it has to be. And what is the voice? I remember it's always because they are children, and this woman and Hilde have to speak differently than Amanda. Amanda is a mother, is quiet, but Hilde is more active.
Mhm.
And you're always trying to change the voice of this character. But in this case, I always try to write like the fairy tale. It's like there is something magic in every scene because outside is terrible, happening all this Nazi and the march and the smell of fire all the time. And then I want to create this atmosphere like it's completely magical for them.
Absolutely. And I feel like with Lena, looking at her story, or Lena, and
Mhm.
you kind of get into that mindset, and you get into that child's mindset so easily. Where I find sometimes with some authors where they struggle with it is when they try to create the child, and then the child is just so childlike that they end up becoming annoying.
Yeah,
Um,
I hate that. The first book it was more complicated because
Mhm.
even if you talk to my children, I never, I am not a father like, how are you? Hi, how you feel? I never talk like that to my children. I talk to them like a person because they're a person.
Mhm.
All
Mhm.
my do that, I never talk with doing voices, something like that. For the German girl, because it's in first person, and this is a girl that my daughter inspired. She was growing with my daughter, and at the first phrase of the book is, I'm gonna be 12 years old and decided to kill my parents. This is the opening line for the book. And at the beginning, it was 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, and 12 to 13, because this is the age of my daughter. She was
Mhm.
growing up at the same time. And talking to my editor, we said, "Oh my God, she sounds too mature." But children from the world, they are different for the children from today. They are
Mhm.
more mature. They have to mature faster. And I hate that you said that these children talking like children, because that's maybe it's something contemporary that they have to talk like a high school. It's
Mhm.
different. But in this case, you are talking about emotion, and when she's playing with Leo on the street of Berlin, in the German girl, they are
Mhm.
friends, and they are looking the world maybe in a way different, and they're children because I never mentioned in the German girl Nazis or swastika. They are over for them.
Mhm.
It's the flag is black, white, and red. So they never mention the swastika of Hitler, or when they arrive in Cuba, Fidel Castro. Trying to keep that magic around them. So
Mhm.
dialogue is very important. It's very important in a book. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I know when you are this is your first novel, you're trying to avoid it because you want to be more, you know, voice is more important than them. Dialogue is a key.
Mhm.
It's
I'll
really
agree
good
with
writing.
that. Yeah. Well, I've got a lot of dialogue in my book, so I totally agree with you on that. I love dialogue in books. But I believe we are at our half hour already. It's
God,
going fast.
I have my wine here.
I know. We're enjoying ourselves too much. But before we go, you were going to be in LA, as you mentioned earlier in the show. It's going to be at the Grove on May 22nd at 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Correct. I'm going tomorrow to Washington D.C.
Mm-hmm.
I present the book in Politics and Prose,
Ooh.
and then I love that bookstore. And in
Mhm.
the middle of the Washington, close to the White House, can you imagine? And the next day, I'm going to Rhode Island and Connecticut, and the next stop is going to be LA with you.
Yes.
Wow.
I know. I had to confirm the time, so I made sure that I had it right so that I could be there too.
Yeah.
Because I'll be there interviewing you. So we'll have this conversation again, and I've got more questions that I'm going to ask.
Yeah. And it's going to be open the question to the public. You know, the people is going to ask, and
Hmm.
always fun when
Yeah.
they. Yeah.
I always love it when you get to have go to those kind of Q&As where you have some questions
Mhm.
with the author, and then you have some very random
Mhm.
questions from the audience. I've been to a few where with actors where you've had people in the audience asked for proposals, random stuff.
I heard that a couple of celebrities going to be there at the in LA.
Okay.
We have to be prepared for them.
All right. I will do my best to be as prepared as possible.
Thank you very much. It was fun, and maybe next time for the next book too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, and
Maybe
thank you.
I'll send the book in Chicago and let you know. Yeah.
Okay, yes, please do.
Thank you.
Yes.
And cheers. Yeah.
And cheers, yes.
Cheers.
And guys, be sure to check out, we'll post the link to I'm assuming your events are on your website, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll post the link to the website. So if you guys are in the area, you can check out his events and go meet him and say hello and get your copy of the book if you haven't already.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so
Good
much for joining
night.
us. Thanks.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Okay.